So I will say that I'm Ruth Cleet, the trustee of the Elsa Sewell Foundation, and I'll pass it to our crew, starting with Andy, and then you can do your introductions.
Hi, Andy Kusher, one of the board members.
Dick?
Dick Murgatroyd, board member.
Hello, good afternoon. Jordan Cleet Kusher, Program Officer for the Elsa Sewell Foundation.
I'm Erin Wilkins. I'm an attorney. I practice almost all family law, and I'm the Holly Hill Board Chair.
And I'm Diane Young, and I am the Senior Director at Holly Hill and currently serving as an Interim Executive Director.
I am Bobby Sanderson, and I am the Supervised Visitation Program Manager.
I'm Olivia Sider, and I am the Development Specialist here at Holly Hill.
Okay, well, go ahead and tell us all about Holly Hill.
I'll start. Holly Hill was founded originally as an orphanage, and as the needs of the community has changed, the services that we provide have also changed. And right now we are one of the oldest social service agencies in Northern Kentucky. We provide residential treatment for adolescent youth, female by birth, ages 11 through 18, most of whom have experienced significant trauma and are dealing with significant behavioral health challenges. We also are deemed a QRTP under the Family First Prevention Services Act. Then we also provide services from our Highland Heights campus, and there we provide outpatient services, both therapy and targeted case management to about a 5-county area in Northern Kentucky. We also provide intensive outpatient services to youth who have a higher acuity and a higher level of need for mental health services. And then we have the only supervised visitation program in Northern Kentucky to serve families who have a need for a safe, neutral place to see their children.
Another board member of ours, Frank
Yep.
Hicks. Okay. All right, sorry to interrupt. Okay, well, I mean, over the years, we have worked with Children's Home in Northern Kentucky and the Diocese Children's Home in Fort Mitchell. So you're different from both of those because did I hear you say you serve only girls, correct?
Only girls in our residential treatment program. We serve ages 3 through young adults, male and female, in our outpatient program.
Okay.
And obviously both males and females in our supervised visitation program.
All right. Whereas I think, yeah. All right. So what else can you tell us about your organization and the program that you are asking for funding?
I'll let Bobby, as the program manager, talk more about supervised visitation.
Okay.
So for our Supervised Visitation Program, I actually came into the program this past November due to COVID. Obviously, we were hit pretty hard. Most visitations were taking place in person, but because of the shutdown, they all transitioned to Zoom, which really kind of was not great for our numbers. So in November, I was able to put some policies and procedures in place to reopen and return to in-person visitation. And around that time, I think we were serving, it's upwards of 7 to 10 hours of visitation a month. And for this month, we currently have over 60 hours scheduled on the book. So we've made tremendous strides just since November. The overall goal of the program itself is to build resiliency within the family unit. And we deal with families that have challenges and barriers of all kinds. So we deal with a lot of domestic violence with families. We have child welfare cases where the child is either placed in a residential unit or they're placed in a foster care or kinship care placement. We have lots of substance abuse issues with families as well. So we handle all of those. And the goal, like I said, is to build resilience within the family unit, but it's also to provide a space that's emotionally and physically safe for everybody involved. So we have lots of things in place for that. We do staggered entrance and exit times. So our visiting party will always enter the building 15 minutes early, and they're required to stay 10 minutes after. So there's no interaction between the parties. We also have separate entrances and exits. So our residential party, which would be the custodial party, they enter on our main level, and our visiting parents enter on our lower level. And again, that's 15 minutes early. We're able to assess if there's any issues with substance abuse that day. We're able to plan kind of what they want to do in the visitation, any questions, things like that. And the way our rooms are set up, we do have a two-way mirror. So we're able to have eyes on the visit the entire time. And then we also have a microphone in there. So we're able to have eyes and ears. We also have cameras. So we're able to see every single corner of the room, and we intervene as necessary. We luckily have not had any serious critical incidents due to these safety procedures. In addition to that, we have our panic button, which alerts all of emergency services in Campbell County. Again, have been lucky to not have to do that. But we are a sounding board for the families, again, building that resilience. We help plan what's going to go on in the visit. We can kind of help work with the residential party to manage some behaviors that may happen after. We work with them in documentation. We submit documents to the court. We've been subpoenaed to testify as well. So we really support the family as a whole. Of course, the child is our number one priority, that they remain physically and emotionally safe, but we support, again, the family as an entire entity.
Ruth, you're muted.
Yeah, I know. How do you compare to Family Nurturing Centers services?
The Family Nurturing Center services, they have to be a JFS case out of Hamilton County and referred. We do not have to be referred by the courts. We can be self-referral, and we actually serve the tri-state area. So not just Northern Kentucky. So they don't have to be from a specific county. We actually just did an intake this past week from a family from Indiana. So the major difference is that we're not delegated to a single county, and it can be self-referral. So it's a couple that is maybe going through a divorce, that it's not a court order, but they feel it's best for everyone's safety that we do that. In addition, we do charge a fee. However, it's on a sliding scale. So if a client were to make $15,000 and under, it's $10 a visit. So that does not change with the amount of children or the amount of time. So a 30-minute visit is the same as a 2-hour visit. And we did change that to kind of assist our families with removing the barrier of income to seeing the children. So we are flexible in that regard. We do a $35 intake fee. But again, if a parent can only pay $10 of the intake fee, that is fine. I will make a payment plan for them. To me, the $25 should not be a barrier if they're willing to put in the work to see their children. But that also means that we do not make any money on the program. So we solely rely on additional funding to remain open for our families.
Are these people referred to you then by other people, or is there any organization that refers people to you?
Yeah, so we get lots of referrals from DCBS. We get lots of referrals from family law attorneys. And then we also just kind of get word of mouth referrals from different families that have experienced our services and enjoyed them and things like that. So sometimes families will come for services for some of our outpatient, and they'll see that we provide supervised visitation. So they ask for additional information, and we can kind of set them up from there.
So the supervised visitation, I guess, has clearly been going on for some time, but in terms of this grant request, you're asking for an expansion of the program to hire an additional staff member. Is that because you've just so many families that are wanting to come and the hours aren't lining up and you realize you need to expand, or is it for a different reason?
Yeah, so I'm the supervisor of the program, but I'm also the only full-time employee in the program as well. So I'm doing all of the supervising, but then also kind of the little things with the families as well. So I'm very, very stretched at the moment. So hiring an additional employee, it will just be completely beneficial. It'll open up our hours, give our families, we already do weeknights. So I'm here most nights till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And then we're here on Saturdays all day as well. So we do have 2 rooms, so we're able to double book families. So if we have that second or additional employee, we're able to just get more families in here to have the service that they need.
How many families do you have, generally speaking, that you're dealing with?
Currently, we have, this month alone, we've done 8 intakes for new families. So once they are completed, I believe we'll have 28 open families.
And if I may, obviously as a board member, I have my experience with Holly Hill, but really one of my first introductions to Holly Hill was through my experience in family courts and as a family law attorney, was doing a lot of dependency, neglect, and abuse cases and other cases where supervised visitation was appropriate. So that was really one of my first exposures to Holly Hill. And as Bobby joined us in November, one of the reasons our program is growing is because of Bobby. She has just put so much time and effort into it and really, really kind of dug into the program. So I want to thank Bobby for that. We've got a really great supervisor in place and it continues to grow. But really, probably most importantly, we offer this service because it's the right thing to do. It's something that the community needs. And there's nobody else, as Diane pointed out, there's nobody else in Northern Kentucky that does it. So we know, and because we need to do it on a sliding scale, as Bobby pointed out, it's really important for us to just remove the barriers for people to see their children. So this is never a program we're probably going to make any money on, but it is absolutely necessary for the community.
What type of credentials do your counselors have? Or supervisors?
Diane,
Do you want to answer that, Bobby? Oh,
I'm currently enrolled in my master's program, so I will graduate with my MSW next year. And then we also have we're utilizing interns that are enrolled with for their BSW, at Northern Kentucky University, in addition to their human services degree as well.
How long do people stay with you in those roles? I mean, do you have people that stay a while, or do they just come and work a while and then get another job?
It's hard for us to answer that because Bobby is so new and I'm fairly new too, but one of the interns actually is staying with us as an employee. She enjoyed her experience so much as an intern that we are hiring her part-time to continue on with the program. And that's one of the reasons we're looking for funding, because as we hire staff, it creates more cost for the program.
When I was looking at,
One of the issues too with needing additional staff is there is an element of safety. So we don't like to have Bobby or our monitors here alone because we are dealing with some families that have had some involvement with law enforcement, some involvement with domestic violence, and we want our staff to be safe as well as the families to be safe. So we like to have 2 people here at all times. And because these families can't often come during regular working hours when we have the rest of our clinical staff here, it's a lot of evenings and weekends, we need to have 2 people there.
Clarify that the children are not staying with the children are staying somewhere else away from the families during this period. Is that the case?
Not in every instance. So that depends on the type of case that we have. So Diane did speak about our residential unit. So that is a separate program from our supervised visitation where the clients do live on campus. For supervised visitation, it could be, for example, a domestic violence case where dad was the perpetrator and the children stayed in mom's custody. So they live with mom and dad would be considered the visiting party. We do also have the child welfare cases where one parent was committed some abuse or there was some neglect and they were completely removed from the home. So mom or dad, the perpetrator would be the visiting party. And then if the child's placed in a foster care placement, that would be the residential party. So it really depends case by case.
Okay.
when I was looking at, I get your LOIs put your earned revenue as kind of 70% roughly of your total operating income. And I was looking at your statement activity. A lot of it's coming from under contracts and fees, under residential treatment and behavioral health. I guess, what does that entail? Or how is that revenue coming in? Is that with a government contract? Are you billing insurance and then getting some sort of, X amount per day, per child, per something along those lines?
Our residential treatment program, that's government contracts. We are a licensed PCC with the state. So the children that stay in our residential treatment program are in DCBS custody. And so it's the state paying a per diem for them to be in our services. And then in residential treatment, we also provide therapy and case management and group and all kinds of therapeutic treatment as well. In terms of our behavioral health services or our outpatient services, that is typically either Medicaid or commercial insurance. Occasionally a sliding fee scale, self-pay as well. Those are the programs that right now are kind of helping to fund the supervised visitation. We kind of have to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. So to keep supervised visitation running, it's a whole agency effort.
So the funds that you're getting for these two programs, the residential and all your outpatients, what's the percentage of the funds you're getting that are going towards the operating budget? Is it like 50-50? Half of your earned income is coming through the government contract through residential? Or is it like 80-20 or how's that break down?
I would have to look at the most recent financials. I think probably it's about, I would probably say 60-40, more from our residential program than our behavioral health program.
So if you see 28 families now, if you add a staff member, how will that be advanced? How many will be your capacity at that point?
I mean, we will take as many families as we can put on the schedule. And then if we need to go into a wait list, we can. Like I said, we've done 8 intakes alone in this month, and we're only halfway through. So with the staff that we have, we're able to schedule more intakes and we're able to schedule more families in here. So I can't give a concrete number, unfortunately, but I can see us still exponentially growing.
How long does a supervised visit last?
So in regards to a visit length itself, we typically start with our families at 1 hour once a week. That is because a lot of the families are dealing with estrangement. So sometimes the parent hasn't seen the child in over a year. And obviously coming to a random facility that they may not have, if we don't get a chance to do a child intake with them where they get to come in and see the room first, it can be really overwhelming. So we try to cap it at the 1 hour to begin with and assess how well, the child's doing, how well the parents being able to interact with them, and then adjust from there. But typically we can increase to 2 hours to 2.5 hours. And then we can also readjust or reassess if it's once a week or twice a week, things like that. And then length of service, that also depends. So sometimes the court does order a specific set of numbers of visits, or it's kind of until, they just have another court date come up, or it's really just to the foreseeable future. So again, it's case to case. So that can also change our numbers with, if a family we have reunification, we'll discharge them obviously, or we have our long-termers that have been with us for over a year, 2 years at this point too. So it's really, again, case to case.
Do you make reports to the court?
Yeah, so our program does an observation report for every single visit. So the monitor sits there and they make sure that they keep, again, eyes and ears on the entire visit, and they do a fact-based, observation-based reports. So there's no opinion. We're not able to do any recommendations to the court. So obviously everyone is going to act a little bit different when they know that they're being watched. So we're not able to provide any recommendations on parenting ability or any custodial changes. But we do file, when requested, court reports. So we can either file the individual observation reports, or we can create a summary of all of the visits as well. It's really dependent on what the judge or magistrate might want.
Frank, do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
No? How about you, Dick?
No, I don't think so. I think they've answered quite a few of them. They said, do you have I guess I would ask this, once they've gone through your system, do you have some that will down the road a ways come back again because it hasn't worked out, or their relationships haven't worked out, and they will come back to you again for further consultation?
We do have families that have done that. A lot of times that's more with our substance abuse families than it is really for anybody else. And that's kind of to be expected on the road to recovery, and that's totally fine. We're always welcome. As long as we didn't have any critical incidents that led to the discharge, the families are always welcome back into the program.
So they can come back at will, depending on what they feel their needs are.
And if there's an additional court report, then we'll follow the court report or court order, excuse me, as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Along with that, do you have follow-up in your program at all once they're discharged?
Not currently. And again, that's another reason that I would love additional employees. It's just we have so much to manage with our current families that it's difficult to have that follow-up. So having that, additional support will help us create some sort of more concrete of a discharge plan or follow-up plan. And I'd love to have some type of way that we can follow up with our families and really create that supportive resource net for them.
Do you ever refer your families to other counseling facilities?
Yes, so we'll obviously try to keep us in-house at first, just to keep services consolidated. But again, some of our families, like I said, they'll come from Indiana and they'll come from Ohio, and they are on Medicaid. So we'll make sure that we refer them appropriately. Or if just our services aren't working or they need something different, we'll work with them, both individual visiting party and residential party, to make the correct referrals that they need.
And I think that's something we are really trying to educate the public about, is that we're not just a residential facility. We have therapy services, we have case management, we have an IOP program. So, you've got a family already coming into supervised visitation, we can get them to the other services they need at Holly Hill. And we're trying to get kind of some more awareness about that.
One question, said, now do you have actually people that are residents of your facility during this process?
What and Diane, why don't you follow up here? We actually have two campuses. So just to give you an idea of what this looks like, is that our residential facility is in California, Kentucky. We have this beautiful facility on the river. There's two cottages, and that's where the girls are that are in residential. We have another facility in Highland Heights, kind of right there at the end of 471, where we do our behavioral health services, which would be therapy and things like that. And then in the bottom, there's a basement that walks out. That's where our supervised visitation rooms are, and it's really set up to where that's usually the only thing going on down there. We have these rooms that are beautifully decorated, very child friendly. So that goes on in that facility. So does that answer your question? Is that what you're looking for?
I think so. So the facility in California, how long are those? I take it's the children that stay there, that you keep there. How long are they there? Are they there for any length of time, specific length of time, or?
It's young people that stay there, but they're not necessarily the young people who are involved in the supervised visitation program. They're two very separate programs. The young people in our residential program usually stay there 3 to 6 months. We have had some overlap in that we have had some young people staying in our residential program who are mothers and who have lost custody of their children. So just recently, we had one of our young women in residential. Her child was taken from her and put in foster care. And there were, she didn't feel comfortable. She didn't feel supported by the DCBS worker seeing her child. And there was a bit of conflict between the foster parents that had her child and herself. So they actually asked if, DCBS asked if they could do the supervision in our supervised visitation program. So we brought the young lady over from our residential program to our Highland Heights office, and the foster parents brought the baby over, and she got to see her child in a neutral setting where she felt much more comfortable and was able to have a good visit with her child. And in terms of follow-up, we've heard she's since been discharged from our residential program because she's doing well. And they were looking at terminating her parental rights, and they are now looking at giving custody back to this young lady. So it's a really good outcome in that way.
Good. Yeah, interesting. Thank you.
Bobby, why don't you tell, if it might help with understanding if you tell a story about one of our supervised visitation families, kind of to give people a little bit of an idea of how it works and how it impacts families.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of our favorite stories that we have is we actually had a young woman in the past 6 months. She lost custody of her child in the hospital right after birth because the child did test positive for narcotics. And I believe it was potentially like fentanyl or something like that. So the child was removed immediately and placed in kinship care. So the bio mom's cousin took the child in. And bio mom was living in Maysville, Kentucky at the time. So she actually would drive all the way up to Highland Heights on Mondays and Wednesdays to do a visit at 7:30 in the morning. So she was leaving at like 6 in the morning every single Monday and Wednesday to complete these visits. And essentially we went from, bio mom and cousin were unable to have any type of interaction to we were able to start walking the child to the cousin's vehicle, and they were able to have conversations and they can reconnect as in addition to bio mom and the baby reconnecting. And during this time, bio mom was finishing her intensive outpatient classes. She remained sober and drug-free for over 5 months. And she was essentially discharged from supervised visitation because the court ordered that she no longer needed that. And she was able to then was granted weekend visitations and currently is on overnights and is on the road to full reunification with the child.
And also has been substance free since
Yes.
since that time as well.
Does she have a job or any type of training that she can support the child with?
Yeah, she was working full-time as well.
What type of outcomes do you consider successful and how do you measure them?
So obviously it does depend on the case. Reunification would be our ultimate goal, but sometimes the goal is really just to have a reconnection and a bond with family members if reunification is not what's best for the child's interest. So we do family surveys and things like that. We actually just sent one out to our families about their satisfaction of services, if they've had a decrease in any type of domestic violence or family conflicts and things like that. So we are able to receive some updates from families via these surveys.
So of the 28 families that you have in your caseload right now, how many of them have, well, let's see. All right, let's say in the past year, not the current 28 people, but the 28 people that you had last year, what happened to all of them?
We didn't have 28 people last year. This is new. So we have been expanding since I came on in November. We had maybe only 4 open families because of COVID this past year. So just this growth has been really consolidated and exponential since November.
All right. Well, what happened to those 4?
Most of them are still in our program.
Do you have any questions for us?
I don't have any other questions. Our board meets at the end of this month on April 29th, and we usually like to get back to everybody within a week of the meeting. So the first week of May, you'd be hearing back from us.
I don't have any questions. I really appreciate the chance for you to know more about Holly Hill and about our program today.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks for taking time to meet with us. We appreciate it.
Oh, we appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we-
Bye now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.